We stand on the edge of the deepest abyss, a grave for almost everything that ever lived. 252 million years ago, our entire planet choked. The land withered under ash. The oceans turned to acid. This was not a sudden strike from space. This was murder from within. The earth itself tore open, bleeding oceans of basalt for 1 million continuous years. 96% of all ocean life gone. 70% of land vertebrates wiped out. It is the closest life has come to absolute extinction. Yet from this absolute devastation, a fragile thread survived. To understand how we are here today, we must walk through the fire. Let us step into the world before the end. 252 million years ago, the Earth consisted of a single, massive, arid supercontinent, Pangaea. It was a world teeming with bizarre, specialized life. Vast deserts dominated the interior. Fern forests hugged the coasts. Fearsome apex predators, the saber-toothed gorgonopsids, stalked across the sun-baked, dusty plains of the Permian. Beneath warm, shallow seas, vibrant, complex coral reefs stretched for countless miles. Life had spent millions of years weaving an intricate, stable global web. Deep beneath the rocky crust of northern Pangaea, a colossal plume of magma breached the surface. This was not a single, brief volcanic eruption. It was a rent in the earth itself, a bleeding wound of fire, lasting 1 million years. The Siberian traps poured out rivers of rock. Lava covered an area the size of Europe. The initial explosive blasts darkened the sky with thick, choking ash clouds. A severe volcanic winter set in. Temperatures plummeted across the globe as sunlight struggled to break through. Fern forests died in the dark, herbivores rapidly starved, and the mighty gorgonopsids had nothing to hunt. But the cooling was only the first phase. The surging magma ignited vast, subterranean ancient coal deposits. Billions of tons of carbon dioxide and toxic methane gases surged upward into the fragile Permian atmosphere. The entire world rapidly transitioned from a bitter freeze to an inescapable, suffocating, and hypothermal greenhouse state. Global temperatures spiked by a devastating 10 degrees. The equatorial regions became a lifeless, scorching, and barren hellscape. Forests burned across the land in apocalyptic firestorms. Acid rain poured from toxic yellow skies. The acid stripped the land of its protective vegetation and caused massive erosion into the dying oceans. There was no refuge on the baked terrestrial continents. Desperate animals sought shelter in burrows or collapsed on the open plains, victims of heat stroke and starvation. 96% of all marine and terrestrial species were driven toward a complete extinction. The scale of the devastation is written in the stone, a dead zone in the fossil record. Nothing like this catastrophe has ever happened since. Yet, as the continents burned and the sky rained acid, the oceans suffered a much darker fate. The warming waters could no longer hold oxygen. Ocean currents ground to a stagnant, fatal halt. Toxic algae bloomed in the stagnant shallows, choking the remnants of the great coral reefs. The seas turned purple with deadly sulfur bacteria. Lethal hydrogen sulfide gas bubbled to the ocean's surface, poisoning the air and destroying the ozone layer. Unfiltered ultraviolet radiation battered the surface, mutating the pollen of the few resilient, remaining gymnosperm terrestrial plants. Earth was a barren rock, locked in a feedback loop of unimaginable heat and profound, toxic stagnation. The Great Dying had nearly sterilized the planet entirely. But in the desolate oceans of Act 2, 252 million years ago, the Earth is a sprawling, unbroken supercontinent. This is Pangaea. It is an age of truly bizarre monsters. Life has spent millions of years weaving incredibly complex webs. But deep underground, something catastrophic begins to shift. A planetary pressure cooker, ready to violently burst. In what is now Siberia, the crust rips open. Not just a volcano, a sea of fire. For hundreds of thousands of years, the Earth bleeds magma. The immense Siberian traps have finally ignited. The lava itself isn't what kills the world. It is the invisible gas endlessly pouring from it. Billions of tons of carbon dioxide and methane violently flood into the Earth's delicate atmosphere. The planet brutally traps the sun's heat. The global temperatures surge by an unimaginable 10 degrees Celsius. Violent acid rain strips the land. The mighty, ancient forests completely dissolve. The soil washes away. Without plant roots to hold the earth, entire continents bleed into the sea. The top predators, the magnificent gorgonopsids, find only dust. Starvation slowly takes the kings of the Permian. But the true horror slowly unfolds underwater. Silence. As the oceans rapidly warm, they lose their oxygen. The seas literally choke. They stop breathing entirely. And in this stagnant, terrifying dark, a monster awakens. Hydrogen sulfide-producing bacteria aggressively bloom in the anoxic waters. The ocean turns a rotting purple. This unimaginably lethal gas bubbles into the air. The very air becomes poison. The protective ozone layer is shredded by the volcanic chemicals. Unfiltered ultraviolet radiation relentlessly scorches whatever is left. 9 out of every 10 marine species are now entirely wiped from the face of the Earth. The trilobites, the resilient survivors of 2 previous mass extinctions, finally meet their absolute end. 70% of life on land wiped out. Even the invincible insects suffer a catastrophic collapse. The Great Dying is the closest our entire planet has ever come to being completely, utterly sterilized. A biological reset. A planetary slate wiped clean. The agonizing silence that follows lasts for an unimaginable span of 10 million long years. The vibrant Permian world of bizarre synapsids, of towering mosses, of the majestic gorgonopsians, is erased forever. It truly seems as though life has lost, that the Earth will remain a dead, baking cinder. Yet, deep within the crevices of this wasteland, a handful of tiny, incredibly resilient creatures hide. Among them are the burrowers, the tough ancestors of mammals, and another, vastly different kind of survivor. The Earth is horribly, deeply scarred, but alive. The biological slate is empty, waiting for a new dynasty. The great monsters of the Permian have cleared the stage. From the toxic ashes of the greatest catastrophe in history, a new, even more spectacular age rises. The age of the therapsids is over. Act 3 begins. 252 million years ago, the Earth suddenly becomes a massive tomb. It all begins in the heart of modern Siberia. Not a single volcano, a whole continent, tearing open at the seams. An ocean of magma floods the broken surface. The massive eruptions burn through vast underground coal beds. They pump billions of tons of carbon. Upwards. Global temperatures skyrocket. The oceans absorb the suffocating heat, becoming a lethal bath of stagnant, corrosive acid. Ancient corals dissolve. The mighty trilobites, survivors of 3 previous extinctions, take their final, gasping breath. Life on land fares no better. The atmosphere turns utterly, mercilessly toxic. Relentless acid rain strips the great forests to wood. Without deep plant roots to hold the soil, the continents bleed into the seas in massive mudslides. The apex predators of the dying era, the fearsome, saber-toothed gorgonopsians, collapse from sheer starvation. 9 out of every 10 marine species vanish. 7 out of 10 land species, entirely, permanently erased. It is the closest complex life has ever come to total, absolute, and final annihilation. For millions of years, the Earth falls silent. The only clear winners are fungi. A massive fungal spike appears in the fossil record, silently feasting. They devour the rotting, endless corpses of a ruined world. The tropics become a dead zone, lethally hot regions where ocean surface temperatures approach 40 degrees Celsius. Even the poles offer no true, lasting safe haven. This was not a sudden impact. It was a prolonged, suffocating agony driven by runaway global warming. Yet, hidden in the burrows, a strange, pig-like survivor holds the fragile thread of the future. Lystrosaurus, a humble, resilient creature that would soon inherit the empty Earth. In some desolate regions, this single species makes up 95% of all vertebrate fossils ever found. It takes life over 10 million years to truly, fully begin rebuilding. A vast gap in the global rock record shows an Earth completely devoid of new coal deposits. There were simply no vast forests left standing. But evolution is deeply resilient. In the wake of this absolute devastation, entirely new animal dynasties begin. The marine ecosystems restructure completely. Modern corals and fast-swimming predators take the stage for the first time. The empty ecological niches invite wild, bizarre experiments. The foundations of our modern world were laid in ashes. The Great Dying cleared the global board for the age of the dinosaurs, and eventually, for us. We are the distant descendants of the burrowers, the tenacious survivors of the ultimate global fire. But what does this harrowing near miss mean for our own fragile moment in deep time? The Earth has undeniably proven it can wipe the slate clean when pushed too far. We are now actively writing the next geological layer. A new, unprecedented force is rapidly reshaping the chemistry of the globe. To understand where we are going, we must face the final synthesis of deep time. We stand upon the scattered bones of a forgotten world. 252 million years ago, the Earth almost died. But from the smoking ashes of the Great Dying, a thin lineage survived. They were the ancestors of everything that runs, flies, and breathes today. We are the living legacy of those few, the tiny creatures who endured the long silence. If you want to unearth more of our planet's deepest history, join us here. Subscribe to Endless Form. Together, we will travel further back into the shadows of deep time. We will uncover the vanished empires and witness the resilient survivors of Earth. The Permian extinction almost reset the clock of life. When you look at the fragile world today, what do you think will vanish and what will remain? Share your thoughts below, and until next time, keep exploring.